Okay, hello everyone and welcome to Linguistics I. In this short video, I intend to present the Linguistics I course, first by introducing the professors to you, and second by describing linguistics as a field of study. Let me begin by introducing the teaching team. Professor Deborah Amadio is our profesora adjunta, Professor Gema Galvani is our profesora asistente, and Professors Florencia Venencio and Natalia Galina are our profesoras adscriptas. Myself, Liliana Anglada, I am the profesora titular. The five of us have been working together to make the reading materials available to you, and we will let you know where to find them as soon as possible. We've also been working on guidelines and tasks so that you can work on the reading material on your own, because given the circumstances, we are going to be working from our homes, and we expect you to work a lot independently. Basically, you'll be doing independent work. That doesn't mean that you're going to be there working alone. We want to reassure you that we will be there to help you, to guide you, and to answer the questions that you might have. Having said this as a kind of introduction, let me address the topic that we are concerned with: linguistics. Linguistics is a vast field of study that focuses on various aspects of language. In this course in particular, we will cover a number of linguistic phenomena, not all of the linguistic phenomena that are out there to be studied. We have made a selection of topics and a selection of bibliographic materials to cover those phenomena, and to cover also some of the schools within linguistics, schools that have contributed greatly to the development of the field, to the development of the discipline. Now, what is linguistics? Linguistics can be defined as the scientific study of language. In this statement, linguistic is or can be defined as the scientific study of language. There are two aspects or two concepts that need our attention, and I'd like to explore them with you a little. So, what do we mean by scientific study, and what do we mean by language? These are the two aspects that I will be addressing now one by one. By linguistic study, we mean the description of language based on empirical observations. So what linguists do is observe the facts of language, how people speak, how language is put together, and then they report on those observations and make generalizations about how language works. To observe and describe language, linguists focus on four main aspects. These aspects, you are very familiar with these aspects already. They are speech sounds, words, sentences, and meaning. These four aspects are actually four foci which give rise to different areas of analysis, different disciplines within linguistics. Actually, they are branches of linguistics. So, speech sounds are studied by phonetics and phonology. Words are basically studied by morphology. Sentences are the focus of attention of syntax, and meaning is studied by semantics. That doesn't mean that those are the only fields within linguistics that we are going to be concerned with. There is an approach to dealing with meaning, and that's where I want to say something about meaning in particular, There is an approach that studies meaning that goes beyond what semantics can offer as a way of explanations. This approach is called a perspective, and it studies meaning not just from not just meaning that is encoded in words and sentences, but also meaning that can be derived from the contextual situation. We'll be dealing with these topics at length later throughout the year. If we speak of study, we need to remember that this action, studying, entails also analysis. It entails meticulous and rigorous and systematic analysis of the data that we gather. This rigorous and systematic study is typically carried out by relying on some research methodology. There are different research methodologies, but there are two main approaches that linguists follow when they study language. They can describe facts of language based on observation, observing what people say, how people express themselves, how people write. And this type of study is mostly done by means of or by relying on corpora, sets of data that are gathered, and we can observe and describe this data. Another approach is to describe also native speakers' intuitions about the language, the knowledge they have about the language they use. This type of study is based on introspection, not so much on looking at how people speak. Now, why I mentioned the two approaches? Because the two approaches are based on descriptions, observations in a way, and mainly descriptions, and of course later explanations of how and why things happen. But the emphasis on description that I'm making right now is because I want you to think that most linguistic studies, if not all of them, are done descriptively, not prescriptively. That is to say, the word or the adjective prescriptive is something that we cannot associate with the work linguists do. People who study language might do some kind of prescriptive work in the sense that they pass value judgments about how people use language, or they try to set up rules to indicate what can be said and what cannot be said. But that's not the type of work that linguists typically do. Okay, having covered the concept of scientific study, now I'd like to cover the concept of language. There are many definitions of language, and Facultad and Connor-Linton say a precise definition of language is not easy to provide because the language phenomenon is complex. But we will use a definition provided by O'Grady et al. For this short presentation. And I quote, "Language is a system of communication, a tool for thought, a medium for self-expression, a social institution, a source of ethic pride, and political controversy." I'm not going to develop all of these ideas, but it would be good for you to think about how language is a tool for thought, how language is a system of communication, how language is a source of ethic pride and political controversy. All of these aspects of the definition revolve around the idea that language is an instrument, is a tool that serves many purposes. The idea is that you keep thinking about how language permeates our lives and how language is something that we use constantly and needs to be studied. Especially, you need to study from a scientific point of view, especially because you're going to be professionals about the language, teachers, translators, and researchers. And before I finish, 2 more points about language. There are many types of language or languages. For example, the language of mathematics, the language of arithmetic, the language of computers. In terms of, for example, the language of mathematics, mathematics has a number of symbols and figures with which it can communicate a number of concepts, and that is a language. Computers also need a language to be able to be operated and to function. But these languages are not the focus of attention of linguists. These are considered non-natural languages. What linguists are concerned with is the study of natural languages, that is to say, human languages, languages that are spoken by various communities in the world. And one further distinction needs to be made between language and a language, between language without the indefinite article preceding it and a language, the noun being preceded by an indefinite article. So when we use the word language, we make reference to the system of language, to the code, a kind of abstraction, an entity that can be studied and on which we can make speculations. But a language is a particular language. For example, the language that is spoken by people in Argentina, people in Spain is Spanish. The language spoken in Portugal and Brazil is Portuguese. So this distinction between a language and language is very important, and we want you to keep that in mind when you answer questions and when you provide explanations. That difference or distinction would be roughly equivalent to the difference between lenguaje, the system, the code in Spanish, and lengua, la lengua materna, la lengua hispana, etc. Well, finally, to end this video, I'd like to make a comment or make a caveat about how to use the word linguistics and one related adjective, not related, one noun. Linguistics is a word, you can see this in this little notice that I'm trying to show you here. Linguistics is a noun that is plural in form, but is singular in meaning. It is a field of study. So we need to make the verb agree with the singular number by using verbs in the singular. What the examples? What phenomena does linguistics focus on? And then in the other sentence, it's difficult for me to place it so that you can see it. Linguistics is concerned with language form and language use. That's different from when we talk about linguists, the people who do linguistics. We talk about a linguist or linguists doing a certain thing. So linguists, there in the plural, it is plural in form and plural in meaning. Linguists rely on different data to carry out linguistic research. Well, I think I've covered the main topics I wanted to cover in this video, and to recapitulate, we have briefly talked about linguistics, what linguistics is all about, by describing it as a field of study, and we have talked a little bit about scientific study and language. This will be all for now, and there will be another video covering aspects about the syllabus. This is all. Bye bye for now.